Section 1. Rights and Responsibilities of Citizenship. Welcome to this section on the rights and responsibilities of citizenship in Canada. As Canadian citizens, we inherit a rich tapestry of rights and responsibilities, deeply rooted in our history, protected by our laws and reflective of our shared traditions, identity, and values. Canadian law is a mosaic with multiple sources: statutes passed by Parliament and the provincial legislatures, English common law, the Civil Code of France, and the unwritten Constitution inherited from Great Britain. These sources collectively uphold an 800-year-old tradition of ordered liberty, tracing back to the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215, also known as the Great Charter of Freedoms. This historic document established fundamental rights, such as freedom of conscience and religion, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of speech and of the press, freedom of peaceful assembly, and freedom of association. One significant principle from English common law that persists in Canadian law is habeas corpus, the right to challenge unlawful detention by the state. The Constitution of Canada was amended in 1982 to include the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, starting with the powerful words, "Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law." This phrase underscores the importance of religious traditions and the inherent dignity and worth of every individual within Canadian society. The Charter aims to encapsulate fundamental freedoms while introducing additional crucial rights. Among these are mobility rights. Canadians have the freedom to live and work anywhere in Canada, travel in and out of the country freely, and apply for a passport. Aboriginal people's rights. The Charter ensures that it does not negatively impact any treaty or other rights and freedoms of Aboriginal peoples. Official language. Rights and minority language. Educational rights. French and English hold equal status in Parliament and throughout the government, ensuring language rights are respected. Multiculturalism. Celebrating the diverse cultural heritage of Canada, Canadians value the presence and contributions of each cultural group, striving to respect and live in harmony. Summary. In this section, we explored the origins and sources of Canadian law, highlighting the Magna Carta and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We delved into key freedoms such as freedom of conscience, expression, and assembly. We also covered significant rights enshrined in the Charter, including mobility rights, Aboriginal people's rights, official language rights, and multiculturalism. Understanding these rights and responsibilities is crucial for all Canadians, ensuring a society based on freedom, respect, and harmony. The equality of women and men. In Canada, men and women are equal under the law. This principle of equality is enshrined in our legal system and is a cornerstone of Canadian society. Canada's openness and generosity do not extend to barbaric cultural practices that tolerate spousal abuse, honor killings, female genital mutilation, forced marriage, or other gender-based violence. Those guilty of these crimes are severely punished under Canada's criminal laws. As Canadian citizens, we enjoy numerous rights, but with these rights come significant responsibilities. Obeying the law. One of Canada's founding principles is the rule of law. Both individuals and governments are regulated by laws, not by arbitrary actions. No person or group is above the law. Taking responsibility for oneself and one's family. Securing a job, caring for one's family, and working hard are vital Canadian values. Work contributes to personal dignity, self-respect, and the prosperity of Canada. Serving on a jury. When called to serve, you are legally required to do so. Serving on a jury is a privilege that ensures the justice system functions properly, relying on impartial juries made up of citizens. Voting in elections. The right to vote comes with the responsibility to participate in federal, provincial, or territorial and local elections. Voting is a fundamental aspect of our democracy. Helping others in the community. Millions of volunteers donate their time to help others without pay. Whether it's assisting those in need, helping at your child's school, volunteering at a food bank, or encouraging newcomers to integrate. Volunteering is an excellent way to gain useful skills and build friendships and contacts. Protecting and enjoying our heritage and environment. Every citizen has a role in avoiding waste and pollution while protecting Canada's natural, cultural, and architectural heritage for future generations. Defending Canada is another important aspect of citizenship. While there is no compulsory military service, serving in the regular Canadian Forces, Navy, Army, and Air Force is a noble way to contribute to the country and offers excellent career opportunities. Part-time service in the Navy, militia, or Air Reserves also provides valuable experience, skills, and contacts. Young people can develop discipline, responsibility, and skills through programs like the Cadets. Additionally, serving in the Coast Guard or local emergency services such as the police force or fire department helps protect your community and honors the sacrifices of Canadians before you. Summary. In this section, we explored the equality of women and men in Canadian law and society, emphasizing the prohibition of barbaric cultural practices. We discussed the key responsibilities of Canadian citizenship, including obeying the law, serving on a jury, taking care of oneself and one's family, voting in elections, helping others in the community, and protecting our heritage and environment. We also highlighted the opportunities for defending Canada through military and community service. Understanding and fulfilling these responsibilities is essential for contributing to the strength and integrity of Canadian society. In the next section, we will discuss who we are as Canadians. Don't forget to subscribe to get the notification when the next section is uploaded. Thank you for watching. Welcome to this section on who we are. Canada is known around the world as a strong and free country, and Canadians are proud of their unique identity. We have inherited the oldest continuous constitutional tradition in the world and are the only constitutional monarchy in North America. Our institutions uphold a commitment to peace, order, and good government, key phrase in Canada's original constitutional document, the British North America Act of 1867. A belief in ordered liberty, enterprise, hard work, and fair play has enabled Canadians to build a prosperous society from the Atlantic shores to the Pacific Ocean and to the Arctic Circle, so much so that poets and songwriters have hailed Canada as the Great Dominion. To understand what it means to be Canadian, it is important to know about our three founding peoples: Aboriginal, French, and British. Aboriginal peoples. The ancestors of Aboriginal peoples are believed to have migrated from Asia many thousands of years ago. They were well established here long before explorers from Europe first came to North America. Diverse, vibrant First Nations cultures were rooted in religious beliefs about their relationship to the Creator, natural environment, and each other. Aboriginal and treaty rights are enshrined in the Canadian Constitution. Territorial rights were first guaranteed through the Royal Proclamation of 1763 by King George III, establishing the basis for negotiating treaties with newcomers. Treaties were not always fully respected. From the 1800s until the 1980s, many Aboriginal children were placed in residential schools by the federal government to educate and assimilate them into mainstream Canadian culture. These schools were poorly funded, inflicted hardship on the students, and some experienced physical abuse. Aboriginal languages and cultural practices were mostly prohibited. In 2008, Ottawa formally apologized to the former students. In today's Canada, Aboriginal peoples enjoy renewed pride and confidence and have made significant achievements in agriculture, the environment, business, and the arts. The term Aboriginal peoples refers to three distinct groups: First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. First Nations Indian refers to all Aboriginal people who are not Inuit or Métis. In the 1970s, the term First Nations began to be used. Today, about half of First Nations people live on reserve land in about 600 communities, while the other half live off-reserve, mainly in urban centers. Inuit. The Inuit, meaning the people in the Inuktitut language, live in small, scattered communities across the Arctic. Their knowledge of the land, sea, and wildlife enabled them to adapt to one of the harshest environments on Earth. Métis. Métis are a distinct people of mixed Aboriginal and European ancestry, the majority of whom live in the prairie provinces. They come from both French and English-speaking backgrounds and speak their own dialect. Ishif. About 65% of the Aboriginal people are First Nations, 30% are Métis, and 4% are Inuit. English and French Canadian society today stems largely from the English-speaking and French-speaking Christian civilizations brought here from Europe by settlers. English and French define the reality of day-to-day life for most people and are the country's official languages. The federal government is required by law to provide services throughout Canada in both English and French. Today there are 18 million Anglophones, people who speak English as a first language, and 7 million Francophones, people who speak French as their first language. While the majority of Francophones live in Quebec, 1 million Francophones live in Ontario, New Brunswick, and Manitoba, with a smaller presence in other provinces. New Brunswick is the only officially bilingual province. Acadians are descendants of French colonists who began settling in what are now the Maritime provinces in 1604. Between 1755 and 1763, during the war between Britain and France, more than two-thirds of the Acadians were deported from their homeland. Despite this ordeal known as the Great Upheaval, the Acadians survived and maintained their unique identity. Today, Acadian culture is flourishing and is a lively part of French-speaking Canada. Quebecers are the people of Quebec, vast majority French-speaking. Most are descendants of 8,500 French settlers from the 1600s and 1700s and maintain a unique identity, culture, and language. The House of Commons recognized in 2006 the Québécois form a nation within a united Canada. 1 million Anglo-Quebecers have a heritage of 250 years and form a vibrant part of the Quebec fabric. Becoming Canadian. Some Canadians immigrate from places where they have experienced warfare or conflict. Such experiences do not justify bringing to Canada violent, extreme, or hateful prejudices. In becoming Canadian, newcomers are expected to embrace democratic principles such as the rule of law. Basic way of life in English-speaking areas was established by hundreds of thousands of English, Welsh, Scottish, and Irish settlers, soldiers, and migrants from the 1600s to the 20th century. Generations of pioneers and builders of British origins, as well as other groups, invested and endured hardship in laying the foundations of our country. This helps explain why Anglophones, English speakers, are generally referred to as English Canadians. Diversity in Canada. The majority of Canadians were born in this country, and this has been true since the 1800s. However, Canada is often referred to as a land of immigrants because over the past 200 years, millions of newcomers have helped to build and defend our way of life. Many ethnic and religious religious groups live and work in peace as proud Canadians. The largest groups are the English, French, Scottish, Irish, German, Italian, Chinese, Aboriginal, Ukrainian, Dutch, South Asian, and Scandinavian. Since the 1970s, most immigrants have come from Asian countries. Non-official languages are widely spoken in Canadian homes. Chinese languages are the second most spoken at home, after English, in 2 of Canada's biggest cities. In Vancouver, 13% of the population speak Chinese languages at home. In Toronto, the number is 7%. Great majority of Canadians identify as Christians. The largest religious affiliation is Catholic, followed by various Protestant churches. The numbers of Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, and members of other religions, as well as people who state no religion, are also growing. In Canada, the state has traditionally partnered with faith communities to promote social welfare, harmony, and mutual respect, to provide schools and healthcare, to resettle refugees, and to uphold religious freedom, religious expression, and freedom of conscience. Canada's diversity includes gay and lesbian Canadians who enjoy the full protection of and equal treatment under the law, including access to civil marriage. Together, these diverse groups sharing a common Canadian identity make up today's multicultural society. Summary. In this section, we explored the essence of Canadian identity, rooted in a commitment to peace, order, and good government. We learned about the 3 founding peoples, Aboriginal, French, and British, each contributing to the rich tapestry of Canadian society. We discussed the significance of Aboriginal rights, the cultural heritage of French Canadians, and the foundational role of British settlers. We also highlighted Canada's diversity, where millions of immigrants and various ethnic and religious groups live and work in harmony. Understanding and embracing these aspects is crucial for appreciating what it means to be Canadian, as we continue to build a prosperous, inclusive, and free society. In our next video, we will discuss Canada's history. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified when the next video is uploaded. Thank you for watching. Welcome to this section on Canada's history, where we will explore the diverse and rich heritage that has shaped our nation. Understanding this history is crucial for appreciating the Canadian identity and the values we uphold today. Aboriginal peoples. When Europeans first explored Canada, they found all regions occupied by native peoples they called Indians, mistakenly believing they had reached the East Indies. These native peoples lived off the land, with some hunting and gathering, while others raised crops. The Huron-Wendat of the Great Lakes region, like the Iroquois, were both farmers and hunters. The Cree and Dean of the Northwest were hunter-gatherers, and the Sioux were nomadic, following the bison herds. The Inuit lived off Arctic wildlife, and West Coast natives preserved fish by drying and smoking it. Warfare was common among Aboriginal groups as they competed for land, resources, and prestige. The arrival of European traders, missionaries, soldiers, and colonists changed the native way of life forever. Large numbers of Aboriginals died from European diseases to which they lacked immunity. Despite this, Aboriginals and Europeans formed strong economic, religious, and military bonds in the first 200 years of coexistence, laying the foundations of Canada. The first Europeans, the Vikings from Iceland, who colonized Greenland 1,000 years ago, also reached Labrador and Newfoundland. The remains of their settlement at L'Anse aux Meadows are now a World Heritage Site. European exploration began in earnest in 1497 with John Cabot's expedition, the first to map Canada's east coast, exploring a river, naming Canada. Between 1534 and 1542, Jacques Cartier made 3 voyages across the Atlantic, claiming the land for King Francis I of France. Cartier heard the Iroquoian word Kanata, meaning village, from 2 captured guides. By the 1550s, the name Canada began appearing on maps. Cartier's exploration paved the way for future French claims to the territory and marked the beginning of a significant chapter in Canada's history. Royal New France. In 1604, French explorers Pierre de Monts and Samuel de Champlain established the first European settlement north of Florida. Initially, they settled on St. Croix Island in present-day Maine before moving to Port Royal in Acadia, now Nova Scotia. In 1608, Champlain built a fortress in Quebec City, facing harsh climatic conditions and forging alliances with the Algonquin, Montagnais, and Huron against their common enemies, the Iroquois. Despite numerous conflicts, including a century-long battle with the Iroquois, the French and Aboriginal peoples collaborated in a thriving fur trade economy. Leaders like Jean Talon, Bishop Laval, and Count Frontenac expanded the French Empire in North America, reaching from Hudson Bay to the Gulf of Mexico. Struggle for a continent. In 1670, King Charles II of England granted the Hudson's Bay Company exclusive trading rights over the watershed, draining into Hudson Bay. For the next 100 years, it competed with Montreal-based traders. The skilled and courageous men who traveled by canoe, known as voyageurs and coureurs des bois, formed strong alliances with First Nations. English colonies along the Atlantic seaboard eventually became richer and more populous than New France. In the 1700s, France and Great Britain battled for control of North America. The British victory at the Battle of the Plains of Abraham in 1759 marked the end of France's empire in America, with both commanders, Brigadier James Wolfe and the Marquis de Montcalm, killed in battle. the province of Quebec. Following the war, Great Britain renamed the colony the province of Quebec. The French-speaking Catholic people, known as habitants or Canadians, strove to preserve their way of life under British rule. To better govern the French Roman Catholic majority, the British Parliament passed the Quebec Act of 1774, allowing religious freedom for Catholics and the restoration of French civil law while maintaining British criminal law. United Empire Loyalists. In 1776, the 13 British colonies south of Quebec declared independence, forming the United States. Over 40,000 Loyalists fled the American Revolution to settle in Nova Scotia and Quebec. Joseph Brant led thousands of Loyalist Mohawk Indians into Canada. The Loyalists came from various backgrounds, including Dutch, German, British, Scandinavian, and Aboriginal, and from Presbyterian, Anglican, Baptist, Methodist, Jewish, Quaker, and Catholic religions. About 3,000 black Loyalists also came seeking a better life. Some black Nova Scotians, given poor land, later moved to establish Freetown, Sierra Leone, a new British colony for freed slaves. The beginnings of democracy. Democratic institutions developed gradually and peacefully. The first representative assembly was elected in Halifax, Nova Scotia, in 1758, followed by Prince Edward Island in 1773, and New Brunswick in 1785. The Constitutional Act of 1791 divided the province of Quebec into Upper Canada, Ontario, and Lower Canada, Quebec, granting legislative assemblies elected by the people. The name Canada became official at this time and has been used ever since. The Atlantic colonies and the two Canadas were collectively known as British North America. Abolition of slavery. Slavery existed worldwide, including in the British Empire. The first movement to abolish the transatlantic slave trade emerged in the British Parliament in the late 1700s. Upper Canada, led by Lieutenant Governor John Graves Simcoe, became the first province to move toward abolition in 1793. The British Parliament abolished slavery throughout the empire in 1833. Thousands of slaves escaped from the United States, following the North Star and settling in Canada via the Underground Railroad, a Christian anti-slavery network. A growing economy. Canada's economy grew during the French and British regimes, with the Hudson's Bay Company dominating the fur trade. Financial institutions and the Montreal Stock Exchange opened in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. The economy was based on farming and exporting natural resources like fur, fish, and timber. These were transported by roads, lakes, rivers, and canals, laying the groundwork for Canada's future economic development. The War of 1812. The fight for Canada. In 1812, the United States invaded Canada, believing it would be easy to conquer. Canadian volunteers and First Nations led by Chief Tecumseh supported British soldiers. Major General Sir Isaac Brock captured Detroit, but was killed at Queenston Heights. Lieutenant Colonel Charles de Salaberry turned back 4,000 American invaders at Chateauguay. By 1814, the American attempt to conquer Canada had failed. The War of 1812 ensured Canada's independence from the United States, solidifying the present-day Canada-US border. The British paid for a costly Canadian defense system, including the citadels at Halifax and Quebec City, the Naval Dry Dock at Halifax, and Fort Henry at Kingston, which are now popular historic sites. Rebellions of 1837-38. In the 1830s, reformers in Upper and Lower Canada believed progress toward full democracy was too slow. Armed rebellions occurred but were defeated by British troops and Canadian volunteers. Lord Durham recommended merging Upper and Lower Canada and introducing responsible government. Some reformers, like Sir George Etienne Cartier, later became fathers of Confederation. Responsible government. In 1840, Upper and Lower Canada were united as the province of Canada. Reformers worked toward responsible government, which was first attained in Nova Scotia in 1847-48. Lord Elgin introduced responsible government in United Canada in 1848-49. La Fontaine became the first leader of a responsible government in the Canadas, championing democracy and French language rights. Confederation. From 1864 to 1867, representatives worked to establish a new country, creating two levels of government, federal and provincial. The British North America Act passed in 1867, and the Dominion of Canada was born on July 1, 1867, now celebrated as Canada Day. The old province of Canada was split into Ontario and Quebec, which, along with New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, formed the new country. Each province would elect its own legislature and have control over areas such as education and health. Dominion from sea to sea. Sir Leonard Tilley suggested the term Dominion of Canada, inspired by Psalm 72. This vision of a powerful, united, and free country spanned a continent. The title was written into the Constitution and remains part of our heritage today. Expansion of the Dominion. The Dominion expanded over time, with provinces joining as follows: 1867, Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. 1870, Manitoba, Northwest Territories. 1871, British Columbia. 1873, Prince Edward Island. 1880, Transfer of the Arctic Islands to Northwest Territories. 1898, Yukon Territory. 1905, Alberta, Saskatchewan. 1949, Newfoundland and Labrador. 1999, Nunavut. Canada's first Prime Minister. In 1867, Sir John A. Macdonald, a father of Confederation, became Canada's first Prime Minister. Born in Scotland, he came to Upper Canada as a child, becoming a lawyer in Kingston, Ontario, and a gifted politician. His portrait is on the $10 bill. Sir Georges Etienne Cartier, a key architect of Confederation from Quebec, helped negotiate the entry of the Northwest Territories, Manitoba, and British Columbia into Canada. Challenge in the West. When Canada took over the Northwest region from the Hudson's Bay Company in 1869, the Métis of the Red River were not consulted. Louis Riel led an armed uprising resulting in the creation of Manitoba. Riel later led a second rebellion in 1885 and was executed for high treason, a decision strongly opposed in Quebec. Riel is seen by many as a hero, a defender of Métis rights, and the father of Manitoba. The Northwest Mounted Police, NWMP, was established in 1873 to pacify the West and assist in negotiations with the Indians. The NWMP founded Fort Calgary, Fort Macleod, and other centers that today are cities and towns. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, are now the national police force and one of Canada's best-known symbols. A railway from sea to sea. British Columbia joined Canada in 1871 after Ottawa promised to build a railway to the west coast. The Canadian Pacific Railway was completed in 1885, fulfilling a national dream. The project involved European and Chinese labor, with the government apologizing in 2006 for the discriminatory head tax on Chinese immigrants. Moving westward, Canada's economy grew in the 1890s and early 1900s, attracting immigrants. Sir Wilfrid Laurier, the first French-Canadian Prime Minister, encouraged immigration to the west. The railway enabled the settlement of 170,000 Ukrainians, 115,000 Poles, and tens of thousands from Germany, France, Norway, and Sweden, developing a thriving agricultural sector. The First World War. More than 600,000 Canadians served in the First World War, with the Canadian Corps capturing Vimy Ridge in 1917, a defining moment for Canada. The war ended on November 11, 1918, with 60,000 Canadians killed and 170,000 wounded. The war strengthened national and imperial pride, particularly in English Canada. Women get the vote. The women's suffrage movement, led by Dr. Emily Stowe, achieved voting rights for women. In 1916, Manitoba was the first province to grant women the vote. By 1918, most Canadian women aged 21 and over had the right to vote in federal elections. In 1921, Agnes MacPhail became the first woman MP. Quebec granted women the vote in 1940, thanks to the efforts of Thérèse Casgrain and others. Between the wars, the British Empire evolved into the British Commonwealth of Nations. The Roaring Twenties were prosperous, but the Great Depression of the 1930s brought hardship. The Bank of Canada was created in 1934 to manage the money supply and bring stability to the financial system. Immigration dropped, and many refugees were turned away, including Jews fleeing Nazi Germany in 1939. The D-Day invasion, June 6, 1944. Canadian troops played a significant role in the D-Day invasion, capturing Juno Beach. The Canadian Army liberated the Netherlands in 1944-45 and helped end the war in Europe. The D-Day invasion and the subsequent liberation of Europe marked significant contributions by Canadian forces during the Second World War. The Second World War. Canada joined the fight against Nazi Germany in 1939. Over 1 million Canadians served, with 44,000 killed. Canadians fought bravely in various theaters of war, including the unsuccessful defense of Hong Kong and the raid on Dieppe. The Royal Canadian Air Force took part in the Battle of Britain and contributed significantly to the Allied air effort. The Royal Canadian Navy protected convoys in the Battle of the Atlantic, helping to resupply Britain. Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 brought the Pacific Theater into focus, with Canadians also playing roles in the Pacific conflict. The war ended with the Allied victory in 1945, but not without significant sacrifices and contributions by Canadians. Summary. In this section, we explored the rich and diverse history of Canada, from the early Aboriginal peoples and the first European explorers to the establishment of a nation through Confederation. We examined key events like the War of 1812, the rebellions of 1837-38, and the development of responsible government. We also highlighted Canada's contributions to both world wars, the expansion of its territory, and the growth of its multicultural society. Understanding these historical milestones is essential for appreciating what it means to be Canadian today, as we continue to build a prosperous, inclusive, and free society. In our next video, we will discuss modern Canada, Feel free to check out our previous videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified when the next video is uploaded. Thank you for watching. Welcome to this section on modern Canada, focusing on how Canadians govern themselves in federal elections. This section will explore the structure of government, trade and economic growth, international engagement, and the evolving society in Canada. Understanding these elements is essential for appreciating the democratic principles and the functioning of Canada's political system. Trade and economic growth. Post-war Canada experienced remarkable prosperity and material progress. The world's restrictive trading policies during the Depression era were opened up with treaties like the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, GATT, now known as the World Trade Organization, WTO. The discovery of oil in Alberta in 1947 marked the beginning of Canada's modern energy industry. This discovery significantly contributed to the nation's economic growth. By 1951, for the first time, a majority of Canadians could afford adequate food, shelter, and clothing. Between 1945 and 1970, as Canada strengthened its ties with the United States and other trading partners, it enjoyed one of the strongest economies among industrialized nations. Today, Canadians enjoy one of the world's highest standards of living, maintained by hard work and international trade, especially with the United States. Trade remains a cornerstone of Canada's economic policy, driving growth and innovation across the country. As prosperity grew, so did the ability to support social assistance programs. The Canada Health Act ensures common elements and a basic standard of coverage. Unemployment insurance, now called employment insurance, was introduced by the federal government in 1940. Old age security was devised as early as 1927, and the Canada and Quebec pension plans were introduced in 1965. Publicly funded education is provided by the provinces and territories, ensuring that all Canadians have access to quality education, which is crucial for sustaining economic growth and social stability. International engagement. Canada developed its autonomy gradually, making significant contributions internationally. The Cold War began with several liberated countries of Eastern Europe becoming part of a communist bloc controlled by the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin. In response, Canada joined other democratic countries of the West to form the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, a military alliance, and the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, with the United States. These alliances were pivotal in ensuring global security and defending democratic values during the tense Cold War period. Canada also joined international organizations such as the United Nations, UN, and participated in various UN peacekeeping missions, including those in Korea, Egypt, Cyprus, and Haiti, as well as in international security operations in the former Yugoslavia and Afghanistan. Canadian peacekeepers have been known for their dedication and effectiveness, often operating in some of the world's most challenging environments. This commitment to international peace and security reflects Canada's values and its role as a global citizen. Canada and Quebec. French-Canadian society flourished post-war, with Quebec experiencing the Quiet Revolution in the 1960s. This period of rapid change was characterized by secularization, the expansion of the welfare state, and the rise of the Quebec nationalist movement. Many Quebecers sought to separate from Canada, leading to significant political and social changes within the province. The Royal Commission on Bilingualism and Biculturalism, established in 1963, led to the Official Languages Act, 1969, guaranteeing French and English services in the federal government across Canada. This act was a significant step in recognizing and promoting linguistic duality as a fundamental characteristic of the Canadian identity. In 1970, Canada helped found La Francophonie, an international association of French-speaking countries, further solidifying its commitment to promoting French language and culture. The movement for Quebec's sovereignty gained strength but was defeated in referendums in 1980 and 1995. Despite these defeats, the autonomy of Quebec within Canada remains a dynamic and ongoing topic, shaping the nation's political landscape and prompting continuous dialogue about federalism, cultural identity, and national unity. A changing society. Over the past 50 years, Canada has become a more flexible and open society. Many Canadians took advantage of expanding educational opportunities, with more women entering the professional workforce. This shift has been accompanied by significant social changes, including greater gender equality and increased participation of women in all aspects of public life. In 1948, Japanese Canadians gained the right to vote, followed by Aboriginal people in 1960. Today, every citizen over the age of the 18th of May vote, reflecting Canada's commitment to inclusive and representative democracy. Canada welcomed thousands of refugees from communist oppression, including 37,000 from Hungary in 1956, and over 50,000 Vietnamese in 1975. These waves of immigration have enriched Canadian society, bringing diverse cultural perspectives and contributing to the nation's economic and social vitality. The idea of multiculturalism, as a result of 19th and 20th century immigration, gained new impetus. By the 1960s, one-third of Canadians had origins neither British nor French and took pride in preserving their distinct cultures within the Canadian fabric. Today, diversity enriches Canadians' lives, particularly in our cities, making them vibrant and dynamic places to live. Arts and culture in Canada. Canadian artists have a long history of achievement, reflecting and defining our culture. Contributions in literature, music, visual arts, and performing arts have gained national and international recognition. Prominent literary figures include Stephen Leacock, Margaret Laurence, and Mordecai Richler. Musicians like Sir Ernest Macmillan and contemporary artists have also made significant cultural impacts. In the visual arts, Canada is historically known for the Group of Seven, who developed a style of painting capturing the rugged wilderness landscapes. Emily Carr, who painted the forests and Aboriginal artifacts of the West Coast, and modern artists like Jean-Paul Riopelle are celebrated for their contributions to Canadian art. The performing arts have flourished with regional theaters and world-renowned companies, while Canadian filmmakers like Denis Arcand and Norman Jewison have gained international acclaim. Sports have a rich history in Canada, with numerous amateur and professional athletes achieving success on the global stage. Wayne Gretzky, one of the greatest hockey players, and Terry Fox, whose Marathon of Hope continues to inspire, are notable figures. Canadian advances in science and technology are also renowned, with contributions from Nobel Prize-winning scientists and innovations in various fields. How Canadians govern themselves. Canada is a federal state, a parliamentary democracy, and a constitutional monarchy. There are federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal governments. The responsibilities of federal and provincial governments were defined in 1867 in the British North America Act, now the Constitution Act, 1867. The federal government handles national and international concerns, while provinces manage education, health, natural resources, and civil rights. In Canada's parliamentary democracy, elected representatives pass laws, approve expenditures, and hold the government accountable. Parliament consists of the Sovereign, the Senate, and the House of Commons. The Prime Minister selects the Cabinet and is responsible for government operations and policies. Federal elections. Canadians vote in federal elections to elect members of Parliament, MPs, to the House of Commons. Federal elections are held every 4 years on the third Monday in October, though the Prime Minister may request an earlier election. Canada is divided into 308 electoral districts, each represented by one MP. Canadian citizens aged 18 or older may vote and run in federal elections. Voting. Voting is a privilege of Canadian citizenship. Eligible voters must be Canadian citizens, at least 18 years old, and listed on the voters' list. Elections Canada manages the voters' lists and issues voter information cards. Voting is conducted by secret ballot to ensure privacy. After an election. After an election, the leader of the party with the most seats in the House of Commons is invited to form the government and becomes the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister and Cabinet run the government, while opposition parties work to improve government proposals. Other levels of government. Local governments manage community needs, including urban planning, sanitation, emergency services, and public transit. Provincial, territorial, and municipal elections have different rules from federal elections. First Nations have band chiefs and councillors responsible for services on reserves. Various Aboriginal organizations represent First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people in their relationships with governments. Summary. In this section, we explored the various aspects of modern Canada, including its robust trade and economic growth, significant international engagement, and the dynamic relationship between Canada and Quebec. We examined the societal changes over the past 50 years, highlighting advancements in education, women's participation in the workforce, and the evolution of multiculturalism. We also delved into Canada's rich arts and culture and the country's governance structure, including federal elections and the responsibilities of different levels of government. Understanding these elements is crucial for appreciating the democratic principles and the functioning of Canada's political system. In our next video, we will discuss Canada's justice system, Canadian symbols, and Canada's economy. Feel free to check out our previous videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified when the next video is uploaded. Thank you for watching. Welcome to Section 5 of our series, where we delve into the multifaceted aspects of modern Canada. In this section, we'll explore the Canadian justice system, the symbols that define our national identity, the robust economy, and the diverse regions that make up this vast country. Understanding these elements is crucial for appreciating how Canada functions today and the values that underpin our society, from the rule of law and democratic principles to the rich tapestry of cultural symbols and economic drivers. We'll cover it all. So let's embark on this journey to discover what makes Canada unique and how its diverse regions contribute to the nation's overall character and prosperity. Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay updated with our latest videos. The justice system. The Canadian justice system guarantees everyone due process under the law. Our judicial system is founded on the presumption of innocence in criminal matters, meaning everyone is innocent until proven guilty. This principle is a cornerstone of Canada's legal heritage, ensuring fairness and justice for all. Canada's legal system is based on a heritage that includes the rule of law, freedom under the law, democratic principles, and due process. Due process is the principle that the government must respect all the legal rights a person is entitled to under the law. This system ensures that every individual receives fair treatment and a fair trial, protecting citizens from arbitrary government actions. Canada is governed by an organized system of laws. These laws are the written rules intended to guide people in our society. They are made by elected representatives. The courts settle disputes and the police enforce the laws. The law in Canada applies to everyone, including judges, politicians, and the police. Our laws are intended to provide order in society, a peaceful way to settle disputes, and to express the values and beliefs of Canadians. Courts. The Supreme Court of Canada is our country's highest court. It plays a crucial role in interpreting laws and ensuring they align with the Constitution. The Federal Court of Canada deals with matters concerning the federal government. In most provinces, there is an appeal court and a trial court, sometimes called the Court of Queen's Bench or the Supreme Court. These courts handle more serious criminal and civil cases. There are also provincial courts for lesser offenses, family courts, traffic courts, and small claims courts for civil cases involving small sums of money. Police. The police are there to keep people safe and to enforce the law. You can ask the police for help in all kinds of situations. If there's been an accident, if someone has stolen something from you, if you are a victim of assault, if you see a crime taking place, or if someone you know has gone missing. There are different types of police in Canada. There are provincial police forces in Ontario and Quebec and municipal police departments in all provinces. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, enforce federal laws throughout Canada and serve as the provincial police in all provinces and territories except Ontario and Quebec, as well as in some municipalities. Remember, the police are there to help you. You can also question the police about their service or conduct if you feel you need to. Almost all police forces in Canada have a process by which you can bring your concerns to the police and seek action. Getting legal help lawyers can help you with legal problems and act for you in court. If you cannot pay for a lawyer, in most communities there are legal aid services available free of charge or at a low cost. These services ensure that everyone has access to legal representation regardless of their financial situation. Canadian symbols. Canada has many important symbols, objects, events, and people that have special meaning. Together, they help explain what it means to be Canadian and express our national identity. The Canadian Crown. The Crown has been a symbol of the state in Canada for 400 years. Canada has been a constitutional monarchy in its own right since Confederation in 1867 during Queen Victoria's reign. Queen Elizabeth II, who has been Queen of Canada since 1952, marked her Golden Jubilee in 2002 and celebrated her Diamond Jubilee, 60 years as sovereign, in 2012. The Crown is a symbol of government, including Parliament, the legislatures, the courts, police services, and the Canadian Forces. Flags in Canada. A new Canadian flag was raised for the first time in 1965. The red-white-red pattern comes from the flag of the Royal Military College, Kingston, founded in 1876. Red and white had been colors of France and England since the Middle Ages and the national colors of Canada since 1921. The Union Jack is our official royal flag. The Canadian Red Ensign served as the Canadian flag for about 100 years. The provinces and territories also have flags that embody their distinct traditions. The maple leaf. The maple leaf is Canada's best-known symbol. Maple leaves were adopted as a symbol by French Canadians in the 1700s, have appeared on Canadian uniforms and insignia since the 1850s, and are carved into the headstones of our fallen soldiers buried overseas and in Canada. The fleur-de-lis. It is said that the lily flower, fleur-de-lis, was adopted by the French king in the year 496. It became the symbol of French royalty for more than 1,000 years, including the colony of New France. Revived at Confederation, the fleur-de-lis was included in the Canadian Red Ensign. In 1948, Quebec adopted its own flag, based on the cross and the fleur-de-lis. Coat of arms and motto. As an expression of national pride after the First World War, Canada adopted an official coat of arms and a national motto, Amari usque ad mare, which in Latin means from sea to sea. The arms contain symbols of England, France, Scotland, and Ireland, as well as red maple leaves. Today, the arms can be seen on dollar bills, government documents, and public buildings. Parliament buildings. The towers, arches, sculptures, and stained glass of the Parliament buildings embody the French, English, and Aboriginal traditions and the Gothic Revival architecture popular in the time of Queen Victoria. The buildings were completed in the 1860s. The center block was destroyed by an accidental fire in 1916 and rebuilt in 1922. The library is the only part of the original building remaining. The Peace Tower was completed in 1927 in memory of the First World War. The memorial chamber within the tower contains the Books of Remembrance, in which are written the names of soldiers, sailors, and airmen who died serving Canada in wars or while on duty. The provincial legislatures are architectural treasures. The Quebec National Assembly is built in the French Second Empire style, while the legislatures of the other provinces are Baroque, Romanesque, and neoclassical, reflecting the Greco-Roman heritage of Western civilization in which democracy originated. Popular sports hockey is Canada's most popular spectator sport and is considered to be the national winter sport. Ice hockey was developed in Canada in the 1800s. The National Hockey League plays for the Championship Stanley Cup, donated by Lord Stanley, the Governor-General, in 1892. The Clarkson Cup, established in 2005 by Adrian Clarkson, the 26th Governor-General and the first of Asian origin, is awarded for women's hockey. Many young Canadians play hockey at school, in a hockey league, or on quiet streets, road hockey, or street hockey, and are taken to the hockey rink by their parents. Canadian children have collected hockey cards for generations. Canadian football is the second most popular sport. Curling, an ice game introduced by Scottish pioneers, is popular. Lacrosse, an ancient sport first played by Aboriginals, is the official summer sport. Soccer has the most registered players of any game in Canada. The beaver. The beaver was adopted centuries ago as a symbol of the Hudson's Bay Company. It became an emblem of the Saint Jean-Baptiste Society, a French-Canadian patriotic association, in 1834, and was also adopted by other groups. This industrious rodent can be seen on the 5-cent coin, on the coats of arms of Saskatchewan and Alberta, and of cities such as Montreal and Toronto. Canada's official languages. English and French are the two official languages and are important symbols of identity. English speakers, Anglophones, and French speakers, Francophones, have lived together in partnership and creative tension for more than 300 years. You must have adequate knowledge of English or French to become a Canadian citizen. Adult applicants 55 years of age or over are exempted from this requirement. Parliament passed the Official Languages Act in 1969. It has three main objectives. 1. Establish equality between French and English in Parliament, the Government of Canada, and institutions subject to the Act. 2. Maintain and develop official language minority communities in Canada. 3. Promote equality of French and English in Canadian society, the Order of Canada, and other honors. All countries have ways to recognize outstanding citizens. Official awards are called honors, consisting of orders, decorations, and medals. After using British honors for many years, Canada started its own honor system with the Order of Canada in 1967, the centennial of Confederation. If you know of fellow citizens who you think are worthy of recognition, you are welcome to nominate them. The Victoria Cross. The Victoria Cross, VC, is the highest honor available to Canadians and is awarded for the most conspicuous bravery, a daring or preeminent act of valor or self-sacrifice, or extreme devotion to duty in the presence of the enemy. The VC has been awarded to 96 Canadians since 1854, including then Lieutenant Alexander Roberts Dunn, born in present-day Toronto, served in the British Army in the charge of the Light Brigade at Balaclava, 1854, in the Crimean War, and was the first Canadian to be awarded the Victoria Cross. Able Seaman William Hall of Horton, Nova Scotia, whose parents were American slaves, was the first black man to be awarded the VC for his role in the Siege of Lucknow during the Indian Rebellion of 1857. Corporal Philip Konoval, born in Ukraine, showed exceptional courage in the Battle of Hill 70 in 1917, and became the first member of the Canadian Corps, not born in the British Empire, to be awarded the VC Flying Ace. Captain Billy Bishop, born in Owen Sound, Ontario, earned the VC in the Royal Flying Corps during the First World War, and was later an honorary Air Marshal of the Royal Canadian Air Force. Captain Paul Triquet of Cabano, Quebec, earned the VC leading his men and a handful of tanks in the attack on Casa Berardi in Italy in 1943 during the Second World War, and was later a brigadier. Lieutenant Robert Hampton Gray, a Navy pilot born in Trail, BC, was killed while bombing and sinking a Japanese warship in August 1945, a few days before the end of the Second World War, and was the last Canadian to receive the VC to date. National public holidays and other important dates: New Year's Day, January 1st, Sir John A. Macdonald's Day, January 11th, Good Friday, Friday immediately preceding Easter Sunday, Easter Monday, Monday immediately following Easter Sunday, Vimy Day, April 9th, Victoria Day, Monday preceding May 25th, Sovereign's Birthday, Fête Nationale, Quebec, June 24th, Feast of St. John the Baptist, Canada Day, July 1st, Labor Day, first Monday of September, Thanksgiving Day, second Monday of October, Remembrance Day, November 11th, Sir Wilfrid Laurier's Day, November 20th, Christmas Day, December 25th, Boxing Day, December 26th. Canada's economy. A trading nation. Canada has always been a trading nation, and commerce remains the engine of economic growth. As Canadians, we could not maintain our standard of living without engaging in trade with other nations. In 1988, Canada enacted free trade with the United States. Mexico became a partner in 1994 in the broader North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, with over 444 million people and over $1 trillion in merchandise trade in 2008. Today, Canada has one of the 10 largest economies in the world and is part of the G8 group of leading industrialized countries with the United States, Germany, the United Kingdom, Italy, France, Japan, and Russia. Canada's economy includes three main types of industries. 1. Service industries. These provide thousands of different jobs in areas like transportation, education, healthcare, construction, banking, communications, retail services, tourism, and government. More than 75% of working Canadians now have jobs in service industries. 2. Manufacturing industries. These make products to sell in Canada and around the world. Manufactured products include paper, high-technology equipment, aerospace technology, automobiles, machinery, food, clothing, and many other goods. Our largest international trading partner is the United States. 3. Natural resources industries. These include forestry, fishing, agriculture, mining, and energy. These industries have played an important part in the country's history and development. Today, the economy of many areas of the country still depends on developing natural resources, and a large percentage of Canada's exports are natural resources commodities. Canada enjoys close relations with the United States, and each is the other's largest trading partner. Over 3/4 of Canadian exports are destined for the USA. In fact, we have the biggest bilateral trading relationship in the world. Integrated Canada-USA supply chains compete with the rest of the world. Canada exports billions of dollars worth of energy products, industrial goods, machinery, equipment, automotive, agricultural, fishing, and forestry products, and consumer goods every year. Millions of Canadians and Americans cross every year and in safety what is traditionally known as the world's longest undefended border. At Blaine, in the state of Washington, the Peace Arch, inscribed with the words "Children of a common mother and brethren dwelling together in unity," symbolizes our close ties and common interests. Canada's regions. Canada is the second largest country on Earth, 10 million square kilometers. 3 oceans line Canada's frontiers: the Pacific Ocean in the west, the Atlantic Ocean in the east, and the Arctic Ocean to the north. Along the southern edge of Canada lies the Canada-United States boundary. Both Canada and the USA are committed to a safe, secure, and efficient frontier. The regions of Canada. Canada includes many different geographical areas and 5 distinct regions. 1. The Atlantic Provinces. 2. Central Canada. 3. The Prairie Provinces. 4. The West Coast. 5. The Northern Territories. The national capital. Ottawa, located on the Ottawa River, was chosen as the capital in 1857 by Queen Victoria, the great-great-grandmother of Queen Elizabeth II. Today it is Canada's 4th largest metropolitan area. The National Capital Region, 4,700 square kilometers surrounding Ottawa, preserves and enhances the area's built heritage and natural environment. Provinces and territories. Canada has 10 provinces and 3 territories. Each province and territory has its own capital city. You should know the capital of your province or territory as well as that of Canada. Population. Canada has a population of about 34 million people. While the majority live in cities, Canadians also live in small towns, rural areas, and everywhere in between. The Atlantic Provinces. Atlantic Canada's coasts and natural resources, including fishing, farming, forestry, and mining, have made these provinces an important part of Canada's history and development. The Atlantic Ocean brings cool winters and cool, humid summers. Newfoundland and Labrador. Newfoundland and Labrador is the most easterly point in North America and has its own time zone. In addition to its natural beauty, the province has a unique heritage linked to the sea. The oldest colony of the British Empire and a strategic prize in Canada's early history, the province has long been known for its fisheries, coastal fishing villages, and distinct culture. Today, offshore oil and gas extraction contributes a substantial part of the economy. Labrador also has immense hydroelectric resources. Prince Edward Island. Prince Edward Island, PEI, is the smallest province, known for its beaches, red soil, and agriculture, especially potatoes. PEI is the birthplace of Confederation, connected to mainland Canada by one of the longest continuous multi-span bridges in the world, the Confederation Bridge. Anne of Green Gables, set in PEI by Lucy Maud Montgomery, is a much-loved story about the adventures of a little red-headed orphan girl. Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia is the most populous Atlantic province, with a rich history as the gateway to Canada. Known for the world's highest tides in the Bay of Fundy, the province's identity is linked to shipbuilding, fisheries, and shipping. As Canada's largest East Coast port, deep water and ice-free, the capital, Halifax, has played an important role in Atlantic trade and defense, and is home to Canada's largest naval base. Nova Scotia has a long history of coal mining, forestry, and agriculture. Today there is also offshore oil and gas exploration. The province's Celtic and Gaelic traditions sustain a vibrant culture. Nova Scotia is home to over 700 annual festivals, including the spectacular military tattoo in Halifax. New Brunswick. Situated in the Appalachian Range, the province was founded by the United Empire Loyalists and has the second largest river system on North America's Atlantic coastline, the St. John River system. Forestry, agriculture, fisheries, mining, food processing, and tourism are the principal industries. St. John is the largest city, port, and manufacturing center. Moncton is the principal Francophone Acadian center, and Fredericton, the historic capital. New Brunswick is the only officially bilingual province, and about one-third of the population lives and works in French. The province's pioneer loyalist and French cultural heritage and history come alive in street festivals and traditional music. Central Canada. More than half the people in Canada live in cities and towns near the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River in southern Quebec and Ontario, known as Central Canada, and the industrial and manufacturing heartland. Southern Ontario and Quebec have cold winters and warm, humid summers. Together, Ontario and Quebec produce more than 3/4 of all Canadian manufactured goods. Quebec. Nearly 8 million people live in Quebec, the vast majority along or near the St. Lawrence River. More than 3/4 speak French as their first language. The resources of the Canadian Shield have helped Quebec to develop important industries, including forestry, energy, and mining. Quebec is Canada's main producer of pulp and paper. The province's huge supply of fresh water has made it Canada's largest producer of hydroelectricity. Quebecers are leaders in cutting-edge industries such as pharmaceuticals and aeronautics. Quebec films, music, literary works, and food have international stature, especially in La Francophonie, an association of French-speaking nations. Montreal, Canada's second-largest city and the second-largest mainly French-speaking city in the world after Paris, is famous for its cultural diversity. Ontario. At more than 12 million, the people of Ontario make up more than one-third of Canadians. The large and culturally diverse population, natural resources, and strategic location contribute to a vital economy. Toronto is the largest city in Canada and the country's main financial center. Many people work in the service or manufacturing industries, which produce a large percentage of Canada's exports. The Niagara region is known for its vineyards, wines, and fruit crops. Ontario farmers raise dairy and beef cattle, poultry, and vegetable and grain crops. Founded by United Empire Loyalists, Ontario also has the largest French-speaking population outside of Quebec, with a proud history of preserving their language and culture. There are 5 Great Lakes located between Ontario and the United States: Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, Lake Huron, Lake Michigan in the USA, and Lake Superior, the largest freshwater lake in the world. The Prairie Provinces, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta are the Prairie Provinces, rich in energy resources and some of the most fertile farmland in the world. The region is mostly dry with cold winters and hot summers. Manitoba. Manitoba's economy is based on agriculture, mining, and hydroelectric power generation. The province's most populous city is Winnipeg, whose exchange district includes the most famous street intersection in Canada, Portage and Maine. Winnipeg's French Quarter, St. Boniface, has Western Canada's largest Francophone community at 45,000. Manitoba is also an important center of Ukrainian culture, with 14% reporting Ukrainian origins and the largest Aboriginal population of any province at over 15%. Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan, once known as the breadbasket of the world and the wheat province, has 40% of the arable land in Canada and is the country's largest producer of grains and oilseeds. It also boasts the world's richest deposits of uranium and potash, used in fertilizer, and produces oil and natural gas. Regina, the capital, is home to the training academy of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Saskatoon, the largest city, is the headquarters of the mining industry and an important educational, research, and technology center. Alberta. Alberta is the most populous prairie province. The province and the world-famous Lake Louise in the Rocky Mountains were both named after Princess Louise Caroline, Alberta, fourth daughter of Queen Victoria. Alberta has 5 national parks, including Banff National Park. Established in 1885, the rugged Badlands house some of the world's richest deposits of prehistoric fossils and dinosaur finds. Alberta is the largest producer of oil and gas, and the oil sands in the north are being developed as a major energy source. Alberta is also renowned for agriculture, especially for the vast cattle ranches that make Canada one of the world's major beef producers. The West Coast. British Columbia is known for its majestic mountains and is Canada's Pacific Gateway. The Port of Vancouver, Canada's largest and busiest, handles billions of dollars in goods traded around the world. Warm airstreams from the Pacific Ocean give the BC coast a temperate climate. British Columbia, BC, on the Pacific coast is Canada's westernmost province, with a population of 4 million. The Port of Vancouver is our gateway to the Asia-Pacific. About 1/2 of all the goods produced in BC are forestry products, including lumber, newsprint, and pulp and paper products, the most valuable forestry industry in Canada. BC is also known for mining, fishing, and the fruit orchards and wine industry of the Okanagan Valley. BC has the most extensive park system in Canada, with approximately 600 provincial parks. The province's large Asian communities have made Chinese and Punjabi the most spoken languages in the cities after English. The capital, Victoria, is a tourist center and headquarters of the Navy's Pacific Fleet. The Northern Territories, the Northwest Territories, Nunavut, and Yukon contain 1/3 of Canada's landmass but have a population of only 100,000. There are gold, lead, copper, diamond, and zinc mines. Oil and gas deposits are being developed. The North is often referred to as the land of the midnight sun because at the height of summer, daylight can last up to 24 hours. In winter, the sun disappears and darkness sets in for 3 months. The Northern Territories have long cold winters and short cool summers. Much of the North is made up of tundra, the vast rocky Arctic plain. Because of the cold Arctic climate, there are no trees on the tundra and the soil is permanently frozen. Some continue to earn a living by hunting, fishing, and trapping. Inuit art is sold throughout Canada and around the world. Yukon. Thousands of miners came to the Yukon during the gold rush of the 1890s, as celebrated in the poetry of Robert W. Service. Mining remains a significant part of the economy. The White Pass and Yukon Railway opened from Skagway in neighboring Alaska to the territorial capital, Whitehorse, in 1900, and provides a spectacular tourist excursion across precipitous passes and bridges. Yukon holds the record for the coldest temperature ever recorded in Canada, 63 degrees Celsius. Northwest Territories. The Northwest Territories were originally made up in 1870 from Rupert's Land in the Northwestern Territory. The capital, Yellowknife, population 20,000, is called the Diamond Capital of North America. More than half the population is Aboriginal, Dene, Inuit, and Métis. The Mackenzie River, at 4,200 kilometers, is the second longest river system in North America after the Mississippi and drains an area of 1.8 million square kilometers. Nunavut. Nunavut, meaning our land in Inuktitut, was established in 1999 from the eastern part of the Northwest Territories, including all of the former district of Keewatin. The capital is Iqaluit, formerly Frobisher Bay, named after the English explorer Martin Frobisher, who penetrated the uncharted Arctic for Queen Elizabeth I in 1576. The 19-member Legislative Assembly chooses a premier and ministers by consensus. The population is about 85% Inuit, and Inuktitut is an official language and the first language in schools. The Canadian Rangers. Canada's vast north brings security and sovereignty challenges. Dealing with harsh weather conditions in an isolated region, the Canadian Rangers, part of the Canadian Forces Reserve's militia, play a key role. Drawing on Indigenous knowledge and experience, the Rangers travel by snowmobile in the winter and all-terrain vehicles in the summer from Resolute to the magnetic North Pole and keep the flag flying in Canada's Arctic. Summary. In this section, we've explored the Canadian justice system, the symbols that define our national identity, the robust economy, and the diverse regions that make up Canada. From the importance of due process in our judicial system to the rich cultural tapestry reflected in our symbols and holidays, each aspect contributes to the unique character of our nation. The economic strength, driven by trade, natural resources, and innovation, along with the geographical diversity from coast to coast, all play vital roles in shaping the Canada we know today. Thank you for watching and all the best in your citizenship test.